Hello, and welcome to our Intimacy Reigniter podcast. I am Marla, and this is my husband, Jami, and we are all about figuring out how couples can bring back the intimacy, including ourselves. And we have been doing this for over 28 years, and we have found some really cool things about the neurobiology and how our pathways in our brain affect really all the tensions and triggers that happen in our relationship. And so today we are going to be talking about the blind spots that we have brought into our relationship from our past and how those blind spots end up triggering us into these tension places with our partner. And we're going to show you what it looks like to shift from those trigger tensions to actually tools. So your triggers become tools as opposed to creating tension. We're going to talk about blind spots. We're going to talk about the linear versus infinity thinking. And we'll explain that a little bit more, but it makes a huge difference in relationship. And what we have seen is that in almost every couple we work with, I think every couple we work with,
I think 100%.
There is this linear infinity thinking that is at battle because we don't understand it, haven't understood it, because our clients haven't understood it. And we are going to talk about what you can do to clean up those blind spots, to move through them so that, again, your triggers can turn into tools as opposed to tensions.
That's right. Get curious, not critical.
Yes.
And so learning about blind spots, everybody thinks, oh yeah, okay, my partner needs to know about blind spots. And, or somebody else needs to know about blind spots.
Or my parents,
yeah.
or my whatever.
Whoever.
Everybody besides
they have blind
me.
spots. But, it's a self-bias, right? That we just don't have that easy ability to look inside ourselves. So I think the first thing we have to think about is we have blind spots. We all have blind spots. And so think about a blind spot in a car, right? This is the mirror doesn't quite cover. You have to turn your head and look over your shoulder in order to, make sure that nobody's there.
Yeah.
And, how many accidents are there because people just don't see that car? Or how many close calls have you had, right? So many, because, people just drive over.
We were on a tandem one time, and we were riding down Scottsdale Road before we knew there was a different way to go. And Jami, on this tandem, Jami is fantastic. He was like Mr. Navigator, and he could do anything. We we're going across this road that crossed Scottsdale Road, and a van came, didn't see us. We were in his blind spot. And I swear to you that something crazy, miraculous happened, because I saw Jami underneath the tire of the van, and I'm like thinking, oh, we're dead. And then all of a sudden, we were fine. And the guy is looking at me like, where did you guys come from? Oh my goodness. And we're looking at each other like, we're alive.
Yeah.
Those are the blind spots.
That van moved sideways. And it was like perfectly sideways, and I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
It's like space and time just stretched for a minute there.
But that blind spot that he had, we saw him coming, but we could not stop in time. He just totally didn't see us. And I think obviously we're a tandem. There's a lot of traffic. He's looking for cars. He wasn't looking for us.
Right.
And that's the thing about blind spots.
But how deadly could that have been, right? The blind spot is an important thing to look for. And so our blind spots in relationships end up really being important, and we think we've covered the ground. We think we're good communicators, and we think that we don't really have a blind spot like our partner does, and therefore we end up having the same kinds of fights over and over again.
Yeah. The triggers turning into tensions.
Right.
And that's within a millisecond. And so the really cool thing is that as you learn to identify, uncover, and eliminate your blind spots, you're also able to take this time that if you take at least a second, but we talk about taking 10 seconds internally, 10 seconds, 1 locomotive, 2 locomotive, go to 10, you will respond differently because your trigger is hitting your amygdala, which is your fight, flight, freeze, or appease little part of your brain that goes right there within a millisecond. And it's really difficult when you're triggered to decide, oh, wait a minute, I need to think logically instead of from my basal ganglia.
Right, and this is why we don't even remember what we're fighting about, right? This is why, we fought about something last week and we don't remember what it was, but then we had 5 days of silence or whatever that was, right? We hear that all the time. And the reality is you're fighting about something that is not about today. And that's what a blind spot is. The blind spot is your amygdala, again, doing this 100 times a second, comparing what's happening now, all the sound that you hear, all the clothes that you wear, all the light hitting your body and bouncing off other things. You're comparing all of that to all of your history 100 times a second, so quickly. And if it just looks a little like the wrong thing, and you don't even catch it in your prefrontal cortex, it's not even registering. But now you're fighting about who took the dog out.
Well, yeah, it's that, oh, you just hurt me.
Right.
And the truth is, Jami and I, we came into this relationship with these daggers sticking out of our hearts. And then Jami would bounce up against it, and I'd be like, oh, why did you hurt me like that?
Ouch.
Now, yes, indeed, we do hurt each other. We have hurt each other. And not usually intentionally. Sometimes, because I'm a redhead and an Aries, but no, not anymore. But in that space of, we want to choose to be in this together. We are partners. We are teammates. We're on the same team. We want to be protecting and loving and caring for our partner.
Exactly.
And that's not easy to do when you have a blind spot.
Yeah, and those blind spots are all over the place. And we find many of them, by the third session with us, people are starting to say, oh, that's why I reacted that way.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's what I was doing, or that my partner was triggering this thing in me. Right? And so it's really easy to see them once you have the right lenses on. This is why we have glasses, right? We can figure out what we need to be seeing at the time.
And so also the rose-colored glasses. We have all these, the lenses we carry are all these thick lenses that are trigger points and that we don't even realize are there. And I have all these lenses, trigger points between Jami and I, these blind spots between Jami and I, used to. And once we started uncovering them, it was like, oh, I can see you and your heart is good, and you're not my enemy.
Yeah, even when we blow it bad, we're not trying to hurt our partners most of the time. I mean, there are toxic relationships and toxic things that happen inside a healthy relationship that don't need to happen again, right? That can be toxic. And so identifying those is usually pretty easy. But then these subtler things, these things that we're taking kind of, resentment is a good test, I think. If you have resentment about something, you probably got a big blind spot. Go with it, right? Because that resentment is usually about something that is either unchangeable about your partner, or it is something that you just really haven't asked well enough, for your partner to really understand.
To be heard and understood. Because you may ask 1,000 times. And that's what's frustrating.
Right. It feels like I thought, it does. But, some of those things that you've asked me about, like empathy. Oh, my God. We're opening up another can of worms. That'll be another podcast. But as far as blind spots was, I just really we weren't speaking the same language.
No.
We did. You were asking for something that I thought I was already giving you. Therefore, I felt frustrated. You felt frustrated.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I understood that better that it really made things fit together better. But that's a blind spot. And one of the things that really catapults blind spots and keeps them from being observable by each other even is our thinking style, right? The linear versus infinity thinking.
So in our relationship, Jami is the linear thinker. So imagine a straight line heading forward. And it's an arrow. It's headed forward.
Right.
And so when Jami, he's like focused, he's on a mission, he's moving forward, and
getting shit done.
And let's say that a blind spot hits me upside the head and I get triggered and I say, wow, I'm feeling hurt right now about something that happened in our past. And sometimes it's a long time past. It could be something in the calendar. It's the time of year that something really, really awful happened in our relationship. And there was betrayal and pain, and all of a sudden it hits me, not like it did, but it hits me. I say, whoa, I'm really hurting. The linear thinker, he is going on the road. He is headed in the direction of that arrow.
It's usually a he, but not always.
I'm talking about Jami.
Yeah.
Jami's in there are women who are linear thinkers. So in this case, I'm saying he for Jami. So he's headed in this direction. We've already talked about that. Why are we talking about it? And that used to be so painful for me, because he would say, good grief, aren't you finished with this? Why are we still talking about it? And here I am, infinity brain. So think of an infinity symbol where everything in my past is in my present, and it projects into my future. What was these pain places in my past, in the circle that's on the left side, then the where the circles merge together to create the next circle in the infinity, right there is my present. So what's in my past, these pain points, is in my present and will always be in my future, because I need to clean up those things of my past so that my present and my future can be full of joy and connection and empowerment and confidence. And so here I am, trying to clean up these things in my very small thinking way, because when I'm triggered, I'm not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very, very blind. For lack of a better term, I'm very blind going forward. And so in that trigger point, Jami being able to now say to me, okay, you're hurting.
Right.
I hear you. I believe you. This is important. I'm here for you. Yes, those things happened. And I'm living my amends, and we're moving forward. Changes everything. That linear thinker also tends to have these boxes that they put all their stuff into. They have their work box. What boxes did you have?
Oh, sure. Work, sports, bicycling.
Yeah.
Right. Mountain biking for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Family.
Work, home, sex.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the boxes, and if we're not in the right box at the right time, why are we there? Because we're on a mission here. We're getting stuff done, right? We're getting things.
What happens if you open one of those boxes?
Well, then you have to unpack it all. It's like, okay, yeah, I got this and that, and
it might fall on you and crush you.
Well, especially when there's unresolved issues, right? Well, so like one of our clients said it really well, I think, the other day. She was concerned about her partner's parents, right? Their issues coming through him to their present, and then for her children, she was concerned about the future, how it's going to affect them. And that was a good example of a linear thinker, and he wasn't worried about any of that stuff. He was like, well, we're here now, we're doing the right work.
He's the linear thinker, she's the infinity thinker.
Right.
Because it was all connected.
Exactly. Right. And he was like, oh, wow, I wouldn't even worry about that yet. We're not there, right? And so you're borrowing too much trouble. So that's the linear thinker saying, you're just talking about too many things. Let's get down to brass tacks. This is where we're functioning today.
It will never change.
You're in the wrong box. You're in the wrong box.
It's that defeatist attitude. It's that, for me, it's that 6-lane freeway that says, when things are going well, something bad is going to happen. Shit's going to hit the fan, right? That's it's that. And the linear thinker is that only the fear of shit hitting the fan only happens if a box is opened up that is not supposed to be opened up, or things start falling out of that box, or you hit something when you're going forward that triggers you into something that you are not prepared for.
Right.
I think.
Don't want to open that box right now.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, or it's uncomfortable,
or shameful,
or shame.
Right?
The big things are guilt and shame, right? Those are the big motivators. But I think there's an interesting point you brought up here, though, is we, are processing all of this. I think it's a good time to talk about, like what we believe, right? What we believe about ourselves. Because a lot of times that value, when you talk about guilt and shame, we often believe that that's what we deserve. Right, this is what we deserve to have.
I'm not enough, or I'm too much. That's generally the woman's, issue. I'm not enough, or I'm too much. For a man, it's I'm inadequate.
Right.
Usually.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
The fear of inadequacy, right? The fear of not being enough or being too much.
Right, feeling inadequate, like totally unable to meet the need at the time.
Yeah.
getting a failing grade, or getting the dismissed by dad, right? That's the big.
Yeah.
Those are the big fears. So we have this belief system that's coming into these thinking styles that contribute to our blind spots.
Yep.
Right, and so we have this whole kind of dominoes falling in a direction, and all of a sudden, kaboom! We hit this road bump, this blind spot that stops us in our tracks, and now we're not moving towards our dreams, our goals, in a confident way. We are now not talking to each other. We're fighting. We're snippy. We're short. We're critical.
Well, it's the whole blind leading the blind, right?
Right.
If you're in your blind spot, triggered, then I'm triggered because you're triggered, because unfortunately we are very affected by our partner's feelings and experiences, and we take them on oftentimes. At least my experiences, I have tried to take on Jamie's feelings and make them better, because that was my I'm a recovering codependent, so that was my task, was to, if I could help Jamie feel happy and better, and our kids and everybody around me, because of something that I could do, then I would feel happy, and then everything was great. Well, that's just
it's not all bad. It's not all bad. It worked really well.
It worked
for some things.
Well, it worked for all of us until I was like, wait a minute, I don't like this.
Yeah, it was you were making bad agreements, right?
I was.
You were making bad agreements. You were agreeing, oh yeah, I'll take it all on.
Yeah.
I'll do all this.
Yeah. I'll say yes. And that is a huge, huge thing, that resentment. If I said yes, oftentimes it led to resentment because I was not wanting to say yes. And so that is another huge blind spot. It was for me, because I would immediately say yes. Yes, I can help you with that. Yes, I can do that. And then the next day or whenever it was going to be, and I'd be like, oh, why did I do that? So now I pause, and generally I will say, you know what? Let me think about that. I will get back to you tomorrow. Because if I say yes right away, and truly no is part of that too, but if I say yes right away, I might become resentful, and I do not want to become resentful. If I'm saying yes, I want to do it because I want to be there to be helpful, or whatever it is.
Right, and two things you said are really important here. One, the resentment was a clue.
Yes.
Right? It's like, wait a minute, I'm starting to resent everybody around me. What's going on with that?
Yep.
They're not different.
No.
I liked them before, and now I don't like them.
Now they're just jerks.
They have a resentment.
Always expecting something.
I'll tell you,
from me.
resentment is such a critical thing to be aware of. That if you let that eat you, it is the destroyer of relationships.
Yeah.
Right, and usually, especially in the beginning, I don't think it's even necessary for it to be such a. Most times, if you can speak your truth in love. Mm-hmm. Then you can move around those resentments, find better boundaries, better agreements.
Yeah.
Right? Make better agreements. I don't say yes to everything. Oh, that's a great agreement.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me think about it. Probably one of the best phrases I have ever begun to use.
Right. And so therefore, you have a much more efficient, even energy conservation in your life rather than just burnout all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Because burnout is one of another. If you're not recognizing that you're feeling resentment or resentful, burnout is a big clue that you probably are saying yes to too many things and too many people, and probably saying no to the things that really matter to you.
So this brings us down to, number one, you just made a really important observation. You had to identify resentment.
Yeah.
And then burnout after that, which I think a lot of us don't really recognize that very well.
Pretty sure I was already burned out.
Yeah, well, by the time you recognize the resentments, these are the resentments. I'm already burned out. Yeah, and that. So okay, so feeling identification. It is, I have seen across my research lately, like in the last week, I have seen 3 different. One was a TED Talk, one was just some article somebody wrote, and one was in a book that I was reading, all on feeling identification and how critical it is to meeting your goals.
Do you think that is, because we've been talking about this for 28 years.
I know, I was like stunned.
Do you think that is Brene Brown's shame research.
Yeah, I think
because
that's
Brene
coming
Brown,
from her.
from what we read, and because we're always reading, looking at the new neurobiology, all these different things that we are so intrigued by, and how the brain works, and how we've talked about stuff since the 90s that was not even scientifically provable, but now it's being proved. One of those things is that Brene Brown, she talks about shame being sticky, and you have to actually move it out of your body for it to stop affecting you. So you have to move the feeling. So emotion is the chemical that your body creates, and the feeling language is what we put on that emotion. So let's just say I'm feeling choked. Well, that's an easy one because choked is a feeling, and we have a feeling wheel that's super cool, and that feeling wheel has choked on it. Now, another feeling that it could be is that you just feel really heavy and tight in your chest. And that could be identified as many different kinds of feelings, but in feeling that right now, I identify that as feeling deep frustration. And so those are very important things that I am able to speak or write or somehow move those feelings out of my body.
Or box.
Or whatever actually. Some people love to go running, some people go for walks, some people go paddleboarding, some people whatever. Do what you can. Also speak it while you're doing it. Make sure that you are, as you're running, say, wow, I'm just feeling so frustrated, confused, and angry.
Well, speaking of what Brene Brown said, what she was talking about in that zone was if you're going to use forgiveness. Right, forgiveness is the tool, and this is the only line that I've read that she talks about. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but she has one paragraph, and I think it's in Rising Strong, about forgiveness only works if you can list all of the feelings that were hurt, neglected, or betrayed.
And you have said forever, you have to identify what was lost, stolen, and broken.
Yeah, and that's been something I've been saying for 20 years.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So because when you don't identify it and name it, you kind of make it a no big deal. You literally say, well, my childhood was hard, but everybody's childhood was hard, so it's not big. But when you start listing out the things, you start realizing, well, this is kind of important, and at least it's important to you, right? And we don't have to compare anybody's pain to anybody else's pain.
Pain is pain.
That's right. But to use that forgiveness, that's in the middle of our feeling wheel. So get your free feeling wheel from bringbackintimacy.com or bringbackintimacy Jami on Instagram.
Bringbackintimacy Marla on Instagram.
Right.
DM us and let us know that you'd like one, and we can send you a digital copy.
And we didn't bring one today, but in the middle of that, the thing that moves what we call the north side, or the bad feelings. There are no bad feelings, we know.
People often say, "Oh, the negative feelings." Well, all feelings are important, and
hey, anger's a fantastic emotion.
Tells you something's wrong.
Just express it in the right way, right?
Yeah.
And so the middle, to move from what we call the north side to the south side. So on the north side we have abandoned, fear, and control, and then outside of those, all the feelings, right, that go with those flavors. And then on the south side we have peace, power, and joy, with love in the middle, right? And the top has shame in the middle, which changes, right? It's only temporary. You can clean the shame out. Something we have to do constantly, consistently, and forever, but it does move out. And so to get there, forgiveness, right? And so number one, we have to name the feelings.
Feeling identification.
So we talked last time about, a little more about the dopamine oxytocin loop and how that works and what to lean into. We'll talk more about that again later too. But right now, forgiveness, what it is and why people get hung up with it.
And the thing is that feeling identification, and a part of that is journaling. Right. Journaling is very, very powerful as long as you are not just free form while you're journaling and just putting a bunch of yuck on there and not really resolving it and moving out of your body. So journaling can be very, very powerful. We have a 9-word journal that is very simple. The 3 words from the top of the wheel that you're feeling, so the north side feelings. So
and if you're listening right now and you want the 9-word journal, we will give it to you for free.
That too.
Just make sure you DM us and ask for it specifically, and don't put that on the comment section, just on the download, because most people don't listen to this long. So you're listening, you're interested, we'll give it to you.
Yes, exactly. So the north side feelings. Let's just say that you're feeling confused, and frustrated and controlled. So you get those three feelings from the north side. That's feeling identification, and you're writing them out. That's moving them out of your body. And then you're going to see the corresponding feeling on the south side and the journaling that we have. And then you're going to do 3 gratitudes. It's so cool. And when we send that to you, it will explain exactly how to do it. And it's a really powerful tool to move out those feelings from your body that Brene Brown says it from her shame research is probably one of the most important things to do to get to that space of feeling free. Do you want to feel free?
Right. And so this is why forgiveness is vital to a process of developing healthy boundaries, leaning into your strengths and following your dreams in a confident way, right? And so forgiveness, and people get hung up on forgiveness. Well, that makes it okay. What happened to me? If I forgive them, then what they did is okay. No, never. Forgiveness is not about what happened. Forgiveness is for the forgiver first, and it is really literally the first step to better boundaries. The reason why we have such poor boundaries everywhere in our world is because we just don't want to do the forgiveness work. And we love the forgiveness work, and I still resist doing it because I don't know, something about us resists it naturally.
Well, I think there is an innate sense that if I forgive, then it makes it okay.
Yeah.
Or if I forgive, then I'm going to have to re-engage and have a relationship with that person or that group of people.
But you know what the reality is?
Yeah.
The reality is all you're giving up when you forgive is resentment.
Right.
And the problem
is hurt.
And the problem is we're comfortable with we like our resentment. It's something we may not want it, but once we have it, we're used to it.
Don't you think it's so familiar?
Yeah, I think it's just
you're literally like, oh, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
This is just my normal
That makes perfect
setting.
sense, right?
Normal is actually just a setting on the dryer. So.
And it might be really weird. I mean, I would never say, oh yeah, I just really like to hang on to my resentments. But I tell you what, I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I rehearsed them, and I lost a lot of sleep in the 90s over them.
Wouldn't you say, okay, so talking about the not wanting to let go of your resentments, what was the hardest resentment for you to actually get to the place of letting go?
Well, I think probably for myself, right? It was, forgiving myself for the things that I'd done that really set me back. Not being better, not being smart enough, number one. Just would
you say you resented yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you have resentment for somebody else, and I had plenty of that.
Yeah.
Right? I felt very unfairly treated, and I felt abused, and I felt, and then not really having any kind of good way of expressing myself, no avenue to say, oh, this really hurts, this is very painful. I had that resentment and just felt unfair, right? So the global unfairness. But then from beyond that, the harder to that, letting go of that, it was almost obvious. It was the subtler things that were harder, like for myself, or for those that allowed that abuse to happen, through my childhood.
Right.
It's like you stood there and watched and did nothing. That's a very difficult place
Yeah.
to find, because at first you don't even know that it's a problem. But why would somebody sit there and let that happen?
Yeah, it doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
But so those things are hard. But I think ultimately it's ourselves that is the most difficult thing. When we've done things that have let ourselves down, and who hasn't, right? Everybody, I think, has something in their lives that they would like to have, not had happen, not done themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I would say my resentment, I'm sure, when I look at it closely, was towards myself for letting other people who, I always say I'm loyal to a fault, and allowing other people to continue doing the same things they have done to hurt me in the past and to do it again, including Jamie. And to say, okay, I'm going to move through this, or I'm going to heal through this, I'm going to forgive this, and, okay, it's going to be better now. There were many times that happened, and finally I did get to the place where I was like, fuck it. I just don't even care anymore. It's too painful to care. And it's too painful to re-engage and be connected with Jamie, and even tell him that I love him, because when I do that, I just get hurt again. And so I'm going to watch and see. So I chose to step back and be the abandoner in our relationship. That's a whole nother conversation. But be the abandoner and be quiet and not say I love you and not do those things because I needed him. With my internal dialogue is I need him to show up and show me that he's actually being truthful and that this is actually going to be the thing. And if not, then I know I've done everything that I need to, and I will move forward, as painful as that will be. But I didn't have to. Right. I mean, we're sitting here because we both chose the path of healing and forgiveness.
Right, which is the key
and
there.
I kept
right?
forgiving and forgiving
right.
and forgiving.
Which gave you clear view of your values.
Well, it softened my heart.
Right. Well, when you forgive and you get a good system of forgiving and then caring for yourself, now you're able to see what you value most.
Yeah.
What's most important to you and what's worth fighting for. Which is it's a fascinating thing when you get there, what you're willing to fight for, because it's important to you, and what ends up being the most important, of course, is these close relationships. Yeah. So even being betrayed, even having deep hurt with someone, does not necessarily end the relationship. Mm-hmm. A lot less often than you would think. That's why we have a 97% success rate keeping couples together, is because we can work on this once we have these tools, right? So forgiveness, again, the key here is it doesn't make anything else. It doesn't make bad behavior okay. Right. It doesn't let anybody off the hook. You do not have to talk to anybody that you forgive. If you forgive someone, you do not have to talk to them or let them back in your life or even tell them that you forgave them. That's not a necessary thing.
Well, sometimes people have passed as well. And
sure.
So there's that piece too, which actually, weirdly, this sounds strange, but that tends to be when we work our process with couples. If someone has passed, they are able to move through it and find freedom quicker than when someone is still alive, because obviously,
I guess there's the assurance that they won't really do it again.
Right.
Which ends up being funny when you know our process a little better. But yes, and the key there, of course, is that this forgiveness path then allows us to be clearer and move forward in a powerful way, regardless of who we include in who we talk to about it. And I think it's really profound what is possible and how successful people get when they use forgiveness. So the thing about forgiveness is it's a choice before it's a feeling. You almost never feel like forgiving, and this is why a lot of people never forgive, is because I don't feel like it.
I know. Well, honestly, I cannot think of one time that I have said, "Oh, I really want to forgive."
Yeah, it doesn't. That's why I said there's a natural resistance to it. I just think there is.
And I would say
I am work past that.
Wouldn't you say that I am a pretty forgiving person?
Oh, absolutely. Probably the most forgiving person I know.
But in the past, I would.
We're sitting here together because of that.
Yeah. In the past, I would have said, "Oh yeah, I forget. Oh yeah, I forgive. Oh, I forgive you. I forgive you. Oh yeah, I forgive you." And thinking, "Oh, I'm a really good forgiver." And also that was more of a I forgive you and sweep it under the rug.
Yeah. So no good boundary, no good follow up. Nobody even knows you were hurt.
No.
Because you weren't telling them those things.
Or if I did, it was, "Oh, it's okay."
Right.
And that's my recovering codependence. Looking back on my codependence,
right.
It was
letting
very
people
strong.
Off the hook.
Yeah.
With no boundary, no accountability. Accountability is another big thing that relationships need.
Yeah.
But as we're seeing today, what's important is, as recognizing we all have blind spots.
Yeah.
And we're not good communicators. We got there's got to be some sort of survey that support that information. I don't think everybody thinks they're a really good communicator, and everybody else has the problem.
Okay, I thought I was a great communicator. Oh man, Jami, certainly he didn't have any questions about what I was thinking and feeling. And then when we learned about emotion being the chemical and the feeling language was important to identify that emotion instead of good, fine, bad. What's some other great, fantastic, excellent, awesome, horrible. Those are big descriptors of a feeling. When you identify what's going on in your body, what we find is that you often discover there are 3 different feelings going on in this mix of yuck that you're experiencing. And those 3 feelings are important because oftentimes those 3 feelings you can track back to childhood and something there that you had those three feelings with, and that's where the blind spot began.
Right, and that's just where it began, and then tracing it forward then becomes fairly easy once you can see that. But then that can figure out, that's where I didn't communicate, that's where I didn't protect myself, that's where I didn't know that it could be different. I just expected it to be bad that way. This is why people often attract the same kind of dysfunctional relationships over and over again, right? Just, oh, this is my normal, this is who I like.
Right.
Well, no, that's just who you're used to. You like somebody else.
Right, exactly.
Or that person needs to become someone else.
And you said something one time that really struck me, is that that forgiveness is a bridge to express your pain. This bridge to express your pain, and then discover new strategies. And instead of living in your old narrative, Jami and I have done a lot of our life in pieces, living in the old narrative. That's who Jami was. That's who Marla was. Jami was a abandoner. Marla was a controller. And certainly we have still some of those things when we're in our blind spot trigger places. Those triggers turning to tensions. Those tensions are when those things can come out if we're tired.
Well, and especially when we don't recognize we have two different thinking styles.
Yes.
Right? So we have we have blind spots, then we have two different thinking styles. Then we have our poor communication.
Yes.
Right? And then we have a lack of forgiveness.
What are you saying that lots of words does not equate to good communication?
That's right, lots of words, lots of cerebral.
Story.
Yeah, your story is not good communication.
No.
You know, it's kind of like, what do we learn in social media? You're supposed to have a call to action, right? If you're not communicating with a call to action, you know, that is a clear and understandable and even agreeable, right? That's what you have to have. You have to have all those things with your partner, and so you both need to be on the same page, because oftentimes those agreements are not the same thing.
No, it's true. We have past clients who, she has a lot of words, and what they discovered together was, if she would just start at the end. So she might have this big story, but for him, if she started with, and I need, or and I'd like to see, or and this thing happened, if she started there, he was more interested in what the rest of the story was, because if he had no idea where it was headed, he just checked out and he wasn't even listening. And I'm pretty sure that happens a lot with a lot of couples. I think that we've actually
I heard a comedian the other day say something on the line of, she started the story about the parking lot of the store, and the story was really about the dessert that she made later that night. And so it's all those things in between.
That's usually Jami. Jami will start a story from like,
it's not just women that do that.
Henry
Henry
in first grade, his last name was Cavill. Henry Cavill. He did this one thing one time, and the end of the story is something different. Like, he got in a fight, Jami got in a fight or something with the bully.
All right, yeah. Better stories are shorter, right? And they have 3 parts. But the 3 parts here are blind spots, healed by forgiveness, leading to healthy communication, right? And that's where, you know, when you consider these things, when you consider, you know, the blind spot, the thinking style, how you're going to communicate around it, and then really being clear in your own heart about what you really want. Because oftentimes when we're in that hurting place, we just are feeding that resentment and not getting to the place of, what I really want is peace, power, and joy.
Right. And isn't it interesting how even with us, forgiveness has so often been first, like Jami mentioned earlier, first the choice to forgive. And that's something we ask our clients. We're not asking people to feel forgiving. We are asking our clients to choose it. So in that process, we are able to identify those old blind spots that they've been carrying around for a very, very long time. Some of them, as crazy as this sounds, from the womb.
Yeah.
From the womb.
Yeah,
I mean, like for me, my mom, and you know, my mom, hey, I get this. Seasons of life. She was done with diapers and all that stuff, and I was an accident. My brother and sister were older, 4.5, 6.5 years older than me, and she was done with that part, and she was ready to move on, and here she is pregnant. And in the womb, I know, and as much as she says, you were such a pleasant, a beautiful surprise, what a gift, and I know that's true. But in the womb, I know that she was also struggling with, oh, how am I going to do this? I already feel so overwhelmed and exhausted with what I'm doing. How am I going to have 3 children? That feeling of overwhelm, I was born with the feeling of overwhelm. And so my compensation for this feeling of overwhelm was to be fun and happy and sweet and silly and funny and all those things, so that I wasn't ever a burden or creating overwhelm for somebody else.
Yeah.
I think you kind of had that too.
Sure, absolutely, all those things. And so as you learn throughout your life what's acceptable, feelings are not the top priority, and that's back to the having, back to Brene Brown's research and the need to express feeling in that forgiveness process.
How often do you remember me expressing overwhelm?
Oh, all the time.
Early on. All the freaking time.
It was tired exhausted is the new badge of honor, right? Like, I'm doing so many things.
Busyness.
Busy, that's what it is. Busy is a badge of honor. Yeah, the busy badge of honor. Yeah, I took on this many million things, and here's what, none of those things mattered, right? It's like, well, none of them, but many of them.
Or it was simply, oh wow, look how busy I am valuable. And I believe that was a huge part for me too, is if I were accomplishing things, if I was very busy, if I was doing all that stuff, then somehow I had a higher value than if I rested. Do you remember those crazy stories about, I'd hear Jami, I'd be crazy busy all day long, and I would be sitting down on the couch, maybe reading a book or something, back in the day, when you would actually read a book. And so I was reading, or looking at a magazine. So I'd be reading a book, and I would hear the car come up the drive, and I'd go, oop, and I'd jump up, and I'd go into the kitchen and make sure that I was looking busy preparing dinner, even though most of the time, by that time, most things were ready to be put onto the table. But I had this impulse, and I remember telling story, mom guilt. I had this impulse, I have to be doing something, and we were talking about this, and I remember my mom saying, me too, and then all these other women were like, yeah, me too, all the time. Oh, I better, be busy.
And that's a topic for maybe next time, because I think we've run a little long, but what a great illustration of exactly what gets in the way, and we're so consumed with needing to look busy or look right or be whatever.
Well, whatever it is that is appeasing my fear of not being enough or being too much,
right,
which is that blind spot place.
Exactly.
So remember, cleaning up blind spots is so important in relationship, well, in life in general, but in relationship, because if I'm not cleaning up my blind spots continually, it's not a one-time gig. Sorry.
It's ongoing. It has to be ongoing. These are skills and tools that you have to embrace and really move through. And again,
if I'm not cleaning them up consistently, then we are definitely going to have triggers that turn to tensions,
right, because
that is the nature of humanity.
Right, and these skills that we're talking about, recognizing that there's different thinking styles, being aware of I need to forgive before I communicate, and then communicating effectively around that. So there's actually literally a call to action when I have a need that I need met, right? The tools to help that. The Nightborn Journal is one of those things. So remember, we can give you the directions for that.
And the feeling wheel too.
And the feeling wheel. If you would like a copy, just DM us or contact us. Remember, if you like today's podcast, to like and share and comment and do it 3 times, because we're just starting this blog and we want everybody to be podcast. Blog. It's a podcast. I'm sorry.
Well, and also, again, if you missed it earlier, you can find us. You can find us at bringbackintimacy.com. You can find us on our Instas. I am Bring Back Intimacy Marla. He is Bring Back Intimacy Jami. And you can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're pretty much anywhere you want. Threads, the new Twitter-like app. You can find us there too. So we're
or even go old school. Go to our website.
Yeah, and I said that.
Oh, you said that. Okay, good.
Bringbackintimacy.com.
Good. All right. Yeah, I was thinking those are all the new things, right?
Coming back, circling around. And we are all about wanting you to have the most incredible, loving, connected, empowered relationship, not only with yourself, but with your partner. And let's learn to continue